Hello there people, thanks for tuning in. I'm really glad you did, because today I'm going to show you the steps I took to create this interesting looking lifestyle sort of artwork. But before I get into that, if you really like art and you're not there now, then log on to our Montmartre TV and you can find that on our webpage at www.montmartre.net. There's tons more lessons there, as well as our Facebook and our Creative Connection. And if you subscribe to that, well, we'll send you a fun project each week, as well as lots of other goodies. So let's have a bit of fun and get into it. So the first step in creating this texture is to get a nice, consistent coat down with Montmartre modelling paste. I'm going to smooth out my modelling paste with this old affordable timber float. I'm going to scoop my modelling paste out with a number 17 palette knife, and we'll be using this a little later in the project as well. So let's get our modelling paste on. I use nearly the whole tub for this, but keep about 100 mils aside to use in the piping stage that I was talking about before. I'm using this old wooden float, but a piece of stiff card would work beautifully as well. Well, how interesting does that look? You could leave it at this stage and paint it, or we can keep going. So the next part of this building up texture stage is to break it into sections. And I'm going to use a Montmartre modelling tool for this, and you can use any sort of metal tipped implement to create your marks. You could use bottle top lids, whatever makes an interesting mark. So let's do this. I divide the canvas into 8 segments and begin by dividing the canvas down the centre. I try to get the line as close to the middle as I can. I then divide it down the middle vertically, then in halves again. So now that that's done, we're going to get a bit crazy and add some curves to our work. So to do that, I've just created a compass by looping one end of a piece of framing cord. I can then pop that in through there, like so, and I've created a compass. I create the circles at lots of various sizes and in no particular order. Obviously the centre point is held in position with the thumb, and one must hold the implement directly vertical. Once the circles are laid in, I create a series of lines to add more interest. Some are straight, and some are squiggly, and some are diagonal. Add little dots and circles as well, any mark that will add interest. Use the line work you have laid down to work lines off at angles. Feel free to change the tool as well, as varying line thickness will add interest to the effect. Well, let's leave the marks at that, and let's create some even more three-dimensional additions to our artwork. So I've worked out a really great way to do that, so come over here and I'll show you. I'm going to make a piping bag. You need some scissors, a hobby knife, that palette knife, a bulldog clip, and of course some modelling paste. Start by cutting the top of an empty paint tube with a hobby knife. Once it's off, ladle in the modelling paste, fill it up approximately to 3/4 of the way up. Squeeze the top together, fold it over, and then clamp it with a bulldog clip. Once that's clammed on, take the scissors and snip off the corner. Don't take too much off or the bead will be too large. So let's start piping on the paste. For this stage, I am just basically creating more interest by adding shapes like circles. I just lay them in quite randomly and use the existing marks as a guide on placement. I lay in big ones as well as small ones, and lay them in groups as well as little ones by themselves. Hello! So, while this is still a little bit wet, I'm going to sprinkle in some sand, but you might like to sprinkle in some gravel or something like that. So let's get this sand on. The colour of the sand is not important, as it will be painted over and is just for texture. Well, how fun and tactile was that? Oh, I think I might leave this stage at that. That's enough sand and piping. The last texture building feature we're going to add is to press these interesting looking metallic objects into that modelling paste while it's still wet. I'm using some old unused keys and dipper pen nibs, but you might like to use old costume jewellery, tools, anything really. This is how mine turned out. Pretty cool, hey? Well, our canvas is now nice and dry, and the next step is to lay over a dark wash. And the idea behind this is, as we dry brush on our top coat, the broken colour lying beneath will supply real depth. Now, I want this coat to be quite warm and earthy. So I'm going to create a mix from raw umber and rose madder. The raw umber will give me my earthiness, and the rose madder will supply me with warmth. I'm also going to mix in a little bit of water so it wells in the hollows. So let's get this colour on. Throughout this lesson, you will notice that I have been laying the canvas flat from time to time. This is really easy with the Montmartre MEA 0002C easel. But of course, if you don't have one of these, you can lay it directly onto the floor. Just remember to lay down a drop sheet. I mix this paint at a ratio of 1 part rose madder, 1 part raw umber and 1 part water. I apply this with my 50mm wide Taklon brush. Well, that tint has certainly brought the texture out in this project. But let's face it, to be honest, it looks a little bit khaki. But don't worry, it's all part of my master plan, so let's keep going. If you refer to the PDF, you will see the image where I have suggested some colours. So to lay over the top of this tint, I'll be laying some Montmartre metallic acrylic colours. Now there is 4 of these in the set, and each one I have chosen a corresponding companion colour. And these colours that we lay down first will be Dimension. And they're yellow, orange, violet and permanent red. So let's make this painting a little more colourful. So with the 50mm brush, into the first square I lay in purple. I lay it in with a dry brush so it only comes into contact with the high points. The next square I lay in is the red, in the same as I did with the first. Then some orange, which just looks awesome. And into the last square I lay yellow. The yellow is a really strong colour, so I don't use too much of it, or I think it may overpower the painting. In each square I add a little of each colour and use some of the underlying elements and pick out the detail.
That's enough, Montmartre Joe. Don't overcook it.
Yes, true. I think that's enough colour added. Let's keep going and add our metallics. For this, we'll be using a 75mm sponge roller. So let's lay out our colours and apply our metallics. If you have a look at the PDF, it shows you where to place what colour where. But I use gold on the purple, copper on the red, bronze on the orange and silver on the yellow. The trick is to just touch the high points with the roller. Well, I really hope that you enjoyed that. I just loved the textural quality, and it was awesome the way it just came together. So thanks for watching, and if you haven't subscribed to our Creative Connection, then don't forget to do that. And remember to keep on painting. See you next time.